So, welcome everybody. Delighted to be here with you. Welcome, Julia. You are our special guest tonight. I'm so happy you are here. Yeah, we're looking forward to an inspiring session about intuition. And Julia is, for me, like the person to talk to about the topic of intuition. I firstly met her when she spoke on a panel which was about responsible leadership, and she was the expert who represented the economy in her former role as a head of leadership development for a big German corporate. And as I listened to her, I was totally fascinated because she was the first ever person talking on a stage, on a business stage, talking about the stages of consciousness evolution and that it's a personal journey. And that really kind of totally inspired me. So we started working together and collaborating on many projects. And shortly after that initial meeting, Julia left her corporate role in order to launch her own initiative for her own company. And she founded the Center for Greater Good Leadership. And Julia, I would love to hear from you what is kind of the shift, the change you want to bring into the world with your Center for Greater Good Leadership.
Yeah, thanks, Irina, for all the nice things you said about me. I'm always happy to hear that I inspired you with that speech back in, what was it, 2018 or 19 or something. Yeah, what I would like to support with my work is a shift to more being, more presence, more consciousness, more awareness, more whole mind thinking, you know, with all intelligences, so that we as a human collective can make better decisions and create a better world. That's what matters to me in a nutshell.
Yeah, I can feel the link to werise and driving collective transformation, right? So yeah, totally agree on that. So what I really want you guys and everybody who's watching want to know you is that Julia, before picking up a leadership role in the corporate world, she used to go on peacekeeping missions with the United Nations. And she really went to the most devastating and horrible places, also beautiful places, I guess, but like politically really tough stuff. She supported in democracies and democratic processes. So Julia, like today we want to explore the topic of intuition. What role did intuition play in your life back then when you were doing like totally different work?
Yeah, and in a sense, I was already following my intuition when I left university, with this desire to somehow contribute positively to the world, make a difference. And my interests and my thoughts at that time brought me into the political field. I thought that was my way of correcting, in parentheses, things, you know, working with governments and government leaders and giving advice on strategies for human rights or democratic elections and that kind of stuff. And in a way, it was also my intuition that later, when I had already made quite a career in that field and with the UN, and my final, or not my final, but one of my last jobs that I had was with the peacekeeping department in New York, which is kind of the dream of anyone who is working in that field to get a job there. I was like really amazed that I managed to have that job, and I thought, okay, here it is where I can really make a difference, because this is where everything happens. This is where everything is controlled. This is where everything is decided. And I was deeply, how do you say, disappointed is maybe too much to say, but I was, I was kind of grounded when I realized that something so fundamental about human motivation is missing, which I had recognized in my work in the field with people is so important. What makes people actually collaborate? What makes people change their mind? What makes people care for more than just their own little field, their own business? And when I was working in New York, I saw that everything was about laws, about strategies, about policies, about smart arguments, about smarter arguments, about political plays and tactics and so on. And this whole thing about what drives a human being to consider caring for the greater whole was not at all in the room. And that was so frustrating for me when I recognized that that element is not at play there, not yet, at least at that time when I was there, that I realized I need to either accept it or leave it. And I decided that it's not for me. I want to make a difference with what I see, what I know, what my intuition knows is the right thing to do. So I then ventured into the private sector, as you mentioned, because my hope was that there is also a lot of power to change the world, that I would be able to do it there in a different way, which was also not possible as I had hoped, you know, in a corporate environment where everything is under control of the stockholders. There's also limits to what you can change, but at least I learned a lot of very useful stuff, and I really understood how also the corporate world ticks. And that is extremely valuable for me now, when I work with people who come from either the public sector or the private sector and have their struggles and their roles, to make a difference in a small way, at least.
Yeah, I really feel like what you say, and I think it's extremely important also to see the whole spectrum of, you know, yes, you can be very successful at the United Nations, doing your job there, being successful in terms of maybe the economic, the private sector, but the notion of I don't feel kind of complete, I don't feel whole as a human being is, I think, something many of us or many of our clients can totally relate to. And I think that's really an important way to frame also the access you might want to get to your intuition, and why is that important? Yeah, why is that important for changing the world? I think that for many people maybe it's not so obvious in the first place, like what does intuition has to do with changing the world, but as we can hear from your journey, it has a lot. It has a lot to do with it. So I would love to know, and I'm sure we're gonna touch upon it in your presentation now. But like, what is intuition for you? What does it mean, like in one sentence, in a nutshell? And what could be a way to really for us to integrate it into our daily life, or to, and I'm sure you're gonna touch that also later on, because yes, it's always experience-based what we do here. So yeah, maybe you can give us some inspiration on that before we dive deeper into the workshop part.
Yeah, it's not easy to put it in one sentence, but let me try. It's intuition is our innate capacity to understand more than our rational mind can understand. I think that's a good way of summarizing it. But as you said, I will go much deeper into different facets of that. What are aspects of intuition, and how you can actually leverage your intuition and enhance it as well.
Wonderful. Yeah. I think now we are ready to just, you know, trust the process. put us into your hands. Let us be guided. And also, I'm sure we will explore some very practical ways to tap into your intuition. So, yeah.
Exactly. So, yeah, so I'll walk you through a presentation where there's a little bit of background, knowledge that you might want to have about intuition. But there will also be a couple of practical exercises so that you can have a real experience of using your intuition. And I invite you to really go into it and really, you won't be seen on video. So feel free to really go for it, because there will be movement as well. So that you can really experience what it's like, because it's not so easy to explain it, and you have to just go for it and see what it's like for you. And and as I said, questions, we can take them at the end, and I very much look forward. Feel free to note your questions down in between if you have any. Okay, so I'll start my screen sharing. All right, so maybe a question ahead. Do you all have a pen and a paper? I guess you do. Otherwise, it's maybe good to grab one, because you might need it. Excellent. Yeah, let's talk about intuition, this little bit mystical, more mysterious thing that very often is also associated with esoterics, but I think that's not really the right way of looking at it, because it's something that has been used by the greatest minds on the planet in their work. And you'll hear a few voices of those in the course of this presentation. But to start, I would like to ask you 3 questions. And you might want to take a couple of notes on your reflections. So you have like a minute for each question to write down your answers, and then I'll ask you the next one. So the first question is, what is the opportunity available to you right now? What is the opportunity available to you right now? And how is the opportunity asking you to show up? How is the opportunity asking you to show up? Not how do you want to show up, but how is the opportunity asking you to show up? And what is that asking you to pay attention to then? What is that asking you to pay attention to? So here you had a little first glimpse probably into your intuitive mind. So let's see. Just for intro, Irina already introduced me quite well with all what I have in my past. Yeah, and right now that is my company, the Center for Greater Good Leadership, with which I give workshops. I support companies in their leadership development. I do coaching, change management, and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, and what is really important for me there is to always bring intuition in my work, be it explicitly or sometimes implicitly, you know. And sometimes you can't really tell a leader of a company, okay, well, I'm going to train your people in intuition work, because that's still a bit stigmatized. But in a way, I just do it. And then it's interesting to see how fruitful that is and how amazed people are with the results afterwards. So that are the key elements of my work, so to say, basic leadership development, but with this add-on of bringing in intuition as another resource for problem solving. And another person I should introduce here is my great teacher, Alan Seale. Maybe some of you have heard of him already. He's the director of the Center for Transformational Presence. He lives in the US near Boston. He has written, I think, 5 books about intuition and about creating a better world, because that is his main his main mission, is to create a world that works. That's the ambition of his Center for Transformational Presence. And a lot of the stuff, not all, but a lot of the stuff you will see here today is due to what I learned from him. So I want to give him credit for that. He unfortunately doesn't train himself anymore, but he has a huge network of collaborators, coaches, facilitators that use his methodology nowadays. So that's the good news. That's nothing lost. Yeah, and there are several fundamental principles about his work, and I just want to introduce one here today, because I think that is a very important one, and it's this one here. Are you talking to life, or are you letting life talk to you? That is the big question. And you know, we all have plans in life, you know, like these things here on the post-it notes. We want to make things happen. We want to reach our goals, and there's nothing wrong with that. But sometimes we hit a wall and we can't get on, we can't move onwards. There are obstacles in the way that seem like there is no way of getting past them. And we can totally wear ourselves out if we continue to push against, if we are steadily talking to life and telling life what it's supposed to be, what we want it to be, how it should serve us, how we would like it, how we would like to have and see things. This is like the best way to maneuver yourself into a burnout. And the other option that you can use instead is letting life talk to you. Finding out what is it that life wants to tell me in order to learn something that is useful for my growth. And usually our obstacles are there for our growth. So letting life talk to you is an important shift, a paradigm shift in how you look at life. And then you might be wondering, how do you let life talk to me? And intuition is the answer. If you can access your intuition, you're able to receive the messages that life gives you on a totally different level than on an intellectual level. So basically coming out of this, you could say there are 2 ways of seeing the world. You could see it as it is, as a reality with all its ups and downs, or you could live in a comic lens, so to say, how you would like the world to be. And yeah, I invite you to look at the possibilities that arise when you let life talk to you. And you just did that with these first 3 questions. That was the first dive into that. Okay, so what's it on the agenda here today? What are we going to look at? Other than the dot, that is too much there. The first thing is intuition versus intellect. There's often the question, okay, so how is my intuitive mind different from my intellect? So we will take a look at that. Then we will also look into intuition versus gut feeling. So that's also often used as a synonym, you know, gut feeling and intuition. And there's certainly some overlap, but it's not exactly the same. And you will see why. And then we will take a look at how intuition shows up. So how you can recognize you are being intuitive and ways to grow your intuition, ways that are helping you move forward with that. So let's start with a little meditation exercise. And I imagine that many of you are familiar already with meditation. If not, that's not a problem. This is a simple one that is great for beginners as well. So I invite you to just do that together with me now, just a couple of minutes, make yourself comfortable in your chair. If you like, you can close your eyes and take an upright, comfortable, dignified position with your legs parallel and your feet on the ground. And just take a deep breath. And then notice how your body is carried by the chair. Or maybe it's carrying itself more than the chair is carrying it. Either way is fine. And notice how your feet are resting on the ground. How you're connected to the earth through the soles of your feet. And also notice how your hands are placed now. They might be clutched together or resting on your legs, on your table or chair. Notice where your hands touch your body parts or objects. And then pay attention to the clothes on your skin. How do they feel, your clothes? They might be loose here or a little bit tight there. Just become aware of the parts of your body that are dressed and covered and those that are not. And then check in with your breath. How it's moving in its natural rhythm. No matter what the speed is, it's fine. Also notice where you can observe it the most clearly. Could be in your belly, your chest area, maybe your nostrils. And just rest your attention for a moment on that area where you notice your breath most clearly. And now open your ears. Pay attention if there are any sounds around you, nearby or far away. If you perceive different layers of sound, or maybe silence. And with that, you're ready to open your eyes whenever you feel like. Thank you. Thank you for becoming more present together with me, dropping a little bit deeper inside of yourself and into your own stillness, into the present moment here and now. So let's take a look at the first part of this presentation, intuition versus intellect, and what the difference might be between them. So Steve Jobs said this phrase, intuition is a very powerful thing, more powerful than intellect in my opinion. And you all know how creative he was, how he really shifted his industry with his intuitive ideas about what should be possible in terms of technology. So it's interesting to know that he was using intuition for that it wasn't his very smart intellect alone doing the work. So what is the difference between intellect and intuition then? And how do we use them? What are they good for? Let's take a look. So as a human being, we could say we have two lines of energy flow. And the first one here is this vertical line. And the other one is the horizontal line. So there's energy flowing up and down from the center of the earth through us and up to whatever you call it, source, universe, whatever you like to call it. And there is this horizontal energy line that is connecting us to the physical world, to the reality, to the outside world in which we live and we need to survive. And this vertical line is all about presence, being, about soul, intuition. This is where we find it when we are activating this vertical energy. And our horizontal energy is about the action, the doing. It's our ego that is also there, our intellect. And when I say ego, I don't mean that in a, in a judgmental way, because very often our ego is unfortunately credited for a lot of bad things, but certainly have to do with the ego. But our ego is also very important. So to understand what these two lines are good for. So this first one, the vertical, the presence, being, soul and intuition energy line is for our creativity and innovation. It's our portal to higher knowing, to recognizing the bigger picture, for our self-awareness. And I don't mean that in the sense of self-confidence, but really being aware of who you are and what you feel and these kind of things. So knowing what's going on inside of you. That's what this vertical line is the source for. And it's also for our emotions and body perceptions. We need to be connected to this vertical line to be in touch with our emotions and the sensations we get from our body. Yeah, and the horizontal here is where our intellectual understanding and our detailed analysis is, so that we can actually really make sense of things and work things out and be practical and organized in our approaches and plan and complete things as well. So this is really important for getting stuff done, to have this action, doing energy activated as well. So as a person, there is a problem if we are too much in either the one or the other. So if we are, for example, too much in the presence and the being, in the soul, we lack organization. We have no results. You know, we are all the time sitting around and being present and busy observing ourselves, but we are not being active in the outside world. We are not actually doing anything for our progress in life, and you know, whatever that is, what we want to have progress on. And if we are too much in this horizontal line here, if in the action, in the doing energy, and many of us can recognize us there, I believe, this is also dangerous, because then we are into too much detail and we are not being aware of the larger context of things. We are not being aware of the larger whole. And we could become also very rigid and deadlocked sometimes, because we want to do the plan. You know, we have a plan and we want to execute it. And often we also get into implementing things without taking into account feelings and relationships, if we are too much in this horizontal. So obviously the ideal thing is to be here in the intersection of horizontal and vertical energy, to have both activated and having the vertical energy inform the horizontal energy. And that is where we are really powerful. And not by coincidence, these two lines meet here in the area of our heart, because this is where we connect both. Yeah, so much. Yeah, for the distinction between intellect and intuition. Questions you can, of course, pose me later. Just to follow with a quote from Albert Einstein, he said, "The intuitive mind is a sacred gift, and the rational mind is the faithful servant. We have created a society that honors the servant and has forgotten the gift." And I think that is so obvious also in our modern times, and even he saw it in his times already. We are very much focused on our intellect, our rational mind, and all we can do with that. But we have many of us have lost this intuitive gift that can inform us so well before we get into action, so that we really focus on what is essential and what is for the greater good as well. Yeah, so intuition versus gut feeling. What's the difference here? Yeah, we have three intelligence centers, so to say. This one here is our intellectual mind, our brain. This one here is our heart intelligence. And this one here is our gut feeling, our emotional intelligence. So, in order to understand a bit better what they are for. So the first one, the brain, our thinking brain, this is where we have our thoughts, and it's good for, as I said, for planning, executing and all of that. And it's very much oriented in linear time. So very much in past and future. We're constantly thinking about the past, or we are planning for the future. That's where our thinking brain is often located and active. And then we have our knowing heart, where our truth resides. And as I said, that is where the bigger context is perceived, our larger knowing. So the heart knows, the head thinks, and the heart knows. And then we have here our gut, our emotional center, where we have our feelings, our emotions. And this is also a very important resource of intelligence, because that's what grounds us in the present moment. That's where we are connecting to the here and now through our gut. It tells us immediately what's going on. Is there a threat, or is there something that we just love, that we're enthusiastic about? So Our gut is the primal way to connect us to the here and now. And it's also where our, not only our passions, but also our beliefs are residing, also our limiting beliefs about what we can do or cannot do. So yeah, these are the three intelligences. And I would like to invite you now into a first exercise to get to know those intelligences for yourself and experiment a little bit with how they are talking to you differently. So again, I invite you to make yourself comfortable in your chair in an upright position. And if you like, you can close your eyes. And bring your awareness to a personal or professional issue or situation that is currently creating confusion or conflict. Give you a moment to find such a situation or such an issue that is creating confusion or conflict. And I invite you to step beyond your current perspective or attitude and just go into discovery about that. This exercise is just for gathering new information and understanding. And if your new understanding affirms what you already know, that's fine. But open yourself to the possibility of discovering something new. And we start with our thoughts, our head. And you might want to put your hands on your head just to reinforce a little bit that focus. So you focus all your awareness now on your thoughts, what is happening in your intellect, in your head. What is the story you tell yourself in your head about this situation? And make no judgment about whatever you discover, and do not try to fix or change your thoughts. Just observe what is there. What's the story you tell yourself? And then let go of your thoughts, let them be for a moment, and put your hands on your belly. So now you shift your awareness to your emotions. Drop down deep into your belly and pay attention to what is happening there. And you may want to send your breath there as well, to increase that focus on the belly area. What are your emotions around your situation or issue? What is your gut feeling? Your emotional intelligence may tell you something similar to what your thoughts say, or it may tell you something very different. Again, do not try to change or fix your emotions. Just pay attention and observe. And our emotions often talk in very few words. They're very primal. They might just have like one word or one feeling or one picture for you. And again, let go now of your emotional intelligence, the belly. And now shift your awareness to what your heart is telling you. And you might want to put your hands here in the center of your chest, where your energetic heart is located. You might want to massage that spot a little bit, also to activate that heart energy. So what is your truth about your situation, your issue? What is your truth? And again, your heart may be aligned with your thoughts and or your emotions, or it may not. Each of these intelligences will help you see another part of the picture. What does your heart know? Yeah, at this point, you may feel that you have gotten the answers or clarity that you need. And on the other hand, you may have just stirred things up even more and feel like you're sitting in even greater confusion. It's okay. It just means there's more to discover. So this was just to practice distinguishing between the three intelligences. In coaching, I might usually bring your intelligences to a dialogue where they talk to each other and inform each other, and that could shift them into alignment. So you could also experiment with that later on, having a dialogue between your three intelligences. Let the belly speak to the heart, or the mind to the heart or to the belly. Just play around with that. That can be extremely interesting. Okay. Next step, how is intuition showing up? What types are there and what appearance can you perceive? I once found this very interesting graphic on intuition from the Heart Math Institute in the US. And it suggests that there are three categories or types of processes that the word intuition describes. So the first type of intuition, often called implicit knowledge or implicit learning, essentially refers to knowledge that we have acquired in the past and either forgot or did not realize that we had learned it. So in this regard, the brain matches the patterns of new problems or challenges with implicit memories based on prior experience. And this is often also what we call the gut feeling, you know, when we are actually connecting actual situations in the here and now with past experience. That's the implicit knowledge. The second type of intuition is what we call energetic sensitivity, which refers to the ability of the nervous system to detect and respond to environmental signals, such as electromagnetic fields. And it's well established, and I'm sure you've heard of that both humans and animals, for example, appear to have the capacity to feel or sense that an earthquake is about to occur before it happens. And recently it has been shown that the changes in the Earth's magnetic field can be detected about an hour or even longer before a large earthquake actually occurs. So there is the possibility to sense that when there is a shift in energy. And another example maybe of that energetic sensitivity is the sense of being stared at. You might know that, huh? You notice when someone is staring at you, even if you're not seeing the person. And there's so many scientific studies that have verified this type of sensitivity. And the third type of intuition, this one here, the non-local intuition, refers to the knowledge or sense of something that cannot be explained by past forgotten knowledge or by sensing environmental signals that are just around you. So this is the third type that had nothing to do with neither of the other two. And this appears to be a property of all physical and biological organization. And it's likely because of an inherent interconnectedness of everything in the universe. And you might anyway be aware of that, but I think this is kind of a proof for that, because we can sometimes sense things that are not in our immediate environment. And some example of those non-local intuitions include, for example, when a parent senses something is happening to his or her child who is miles away, or the repeated successful sensing experienced by entrepreneurs about factors related to making effective business decisions. That's also an example. So there is this intuitive capacity wider than what is immediately around you or what is based on your past experience. Yeah. So how do you know your intuition is speaking? One way for it to show up is through inspiration. So that could be, of course, everything in the artistic realm, music, painting, writing, that things just flow and you are inspired and creative, and that comes through your intuition. That's one way. Another way is in forms of invitation. So a gentle invitation that you get from your intuition to look, to explore, to try out something. And I've got to say about inspiration as well. It could be also an inspiration about your future, an inspiring vision. That could also be. So that sort of inspiration. Yeah, and the third type, I think that's the most interesting one, is irritation. So intuition often speaks to us through a real strong irritation, something that contradicts your thoughts, your strategies, and your deep convictions. And this is often the type of intuition that is most difficult to acknowledge. And Sonia Choquette, the spiritual leader, said, intuition doesn't tell you what you want to hear. It tells you what you need to hear. And I think that's very true. It helps us, it protects us, and sometimes also tells us inconvenient or unpleasant things that we should pay attention to. So you might be wondering, am I intuitive? Yes, I'm very convinced that we all are. We all have intuition. We are born with it. But many of us buried it in our childhood, because we get trained in school at the very latest. We get trained to use our intellect predominantly. And we often, I mean, at least I remember that from my school times, we might even get ridiculized for basing our decisions on intuition. No, you have to have logical reasons for deciding this or that. You cannot just say it's like that because my intuition told me so. No, we get trained to find arguments and reasons for everything, be it in literature, when we make an essay, or be it in mathematics. We always are supposed to provide a path of our thinking. And this is how many of us, unfortunately, lost the capacity of paying attention to our intuition, because we just weren't using it for such a long time. And several researchers have contended that intuition is really an innate ability that all humans possess in one form or another. And it's arguably the most universal natural ability we possess. And these researchers also say that the ability to intuit could be regarded as an inherited, unlearned gift. As Einstein said, a gift to help us navigate this complex world. Yeah, and with that, I invite you to another exercise so that you could experience your own intuition even a bit more clear. And our body is a really great resource for insight and guidance. We sometimes get intuition through our head, but we often get it also through our body. So I just chose this one so that you have an experience with the body, how it talks, or how your intuition talks through your body. Yeah, it's really amazing how much the body knows, or how much we know. if we just slow down enough to pay attention. So this framework particularly helps in times when you feel stuck in a situation or circumstance, or you're having difficulty getting past intellectual analysis. So in other words, you're thinking too much and can't seem to tap into your intuitive mind, if that is the case. So your head might tell you that this is silly to do, to work with your body when the head can't find a solution. But I invite you to do it anyway and give it a chance. So, yeah, think about a situation or find a situation, as I said, that is a situation where you're either stuck or you can't get past analysis. You can't move on in some way. And I give you a moment to find such a situation. And then you're invited to stand up for a moment with a little bit of space around you to move. And I hope it's okay if you have cables connected. You don't need to go very far, but just to have a little bit of movement space around you. Yeah. It doesn't matter if you hear me. If you see me, you don't need to see me as long as you can hear me. So connect in your mind's eye with that challenging situation or circumstance where you can't seem to move forward, where you're stuck in. And then breathe into that challenge and feel it inside of you. Where are you holding this challenge in your body? Find the place where you are holding it. And once you know where it is in your body, invite the challenge to mold your body into a physical posture. So the challenge moves or molds you. And if you're not sure how to do it, just trust your body that it knows. Just let your body move itself. And it might feel very uncomfortable to be in that physical posture. But stay with it for just a moment or two. And feel and sense into that posture that your body molded into. And breathe into it as best as you can and pay attention. What information does this posture and your physical experience have for you about your challenge? What information does this posture and your physical experience have for you about your challenge? And then ask your body to slowly lead you, really slowly in slow motion, to lead you toward another posture that can show you a solution or resolution or a next step. Let your body show you what wants to happen with your challenge. And resist the temptation to figure it out and let your body show you as it moves you very slowly into the posture that represents the solution or liberation of the situation. The key is to let the energy and potential move you rather than you moving yourself to a new posture. And you may be surprised at the posture that you discover. And you may be surprised at the movement process that takes you there. Just follow your body into the new posture until you've sensed it's complete. It's really at the end, at the final position. Keep listening, sensing, and feeling through the whole transition from problem or challenge to resolution, and perhaps even liberation. When you are at the new posture, just breathe into it and feel into it. What do you discover there? And to heighten your awareness, ask your body now to slowly, really slowly, move you back to the stuck posture, the first one. Really slowly. And pay attention. What more awareness comes up about your situation as your body slowly becomes stuck or locked up again? And when you arrive back in the stuck posture, remain there long enough to gather any additional information. And then slowly ask your body to move you again to the liberation posture, the second posture. Really slowly. Pay attention to the movement, the sequence. And what further awareness comes up through the slow motion shift toward liberation? When you arrive in the liberation posture, breathe into that energy. The energy of the liberation, of the stuckness. And what are you discovering about your next steps with your issue or challenge? What are you discovering about your next steps with your issue or challenge? And when you're ready, you might want to take some notes on what you discovered. Yeah, I see many of you are still writing. Yeah, thank you for joining this practice and experimenting with it. Let's go for the last part of the presentation, how to grow your intuition and observe what could be obstacles or helpful practices for it. I think this picture is quite adequate to describe what intuition is. So intuition is not like a light bulb, this light bulb symbol that we always have when we have inspiration, creative ideas. We see this light bulb symbol, but intuition is not like a light bulb that switches on inside our heads, and there it is. And as long as it's on power, it's fine. It's really more like a flickering candle that can be easily snuffed out. It's very soft. It's like a whisper or a very soft voice. It's not easy to hear amongst all the noise around us or inside of us, because we have noise around us sometimes that is difficult. And then it's difficult to then pay attention to our intuition, but also noise inside our head. We can be so cluttered mentally with our to-do list, our worries, our concerns, that our intuition doesn't have a chance even to be perceived, because we're not having enough quietness or stillness inside of us. So we really need to be able to pay good attention in order to perceive our intuition. And here's another nice quote from Einstein. He said, intuition does not come to an unprepared mind. So it's not like you can just decide. Well, some of you might, because some of you are already in a good position or good condition for intuition, but for most people, it needs a little bit of preparation and practice. So let's first look at what are the obstacles to intuition. The first one is lack of self-confidence or self-esteem. And I think this is the number one obstacle to good intuition. If you're not trusting yourself, your own inner voice, if you don't regard your voice as valuable, then you will not pay attention to it. So if you sense that this might be an issue with you, that you sometimes lack self-confidence or self-esteem, it will be great to do whatever you can to grow, to boost your self-confidence and your self-esteem in order to be able to trust yourself enough, and this silent or very soft inner voice that speaks to you and that has great things to tell you. The other one is lack of personal responsibility, and maybe the one or the other here in the room is also a coach or something, and you might have come across clients that want you as the coach to give them the solution. They ask, so what should I do? What would you do in my place if you were in my shoes? And if the person has this attitude of finding answers from outside, finding expertise outside of themselves to give them ideas, to give them suggestions, to give them direction, if that is a default for a person, then it's also very, very hard to work with intuition, because the person is just too focused on the outside and not in the inside. And the third one is lack of courage. And here I remind you of that point of irritation. So intuition very often can be very irritating, because it's telling us bluntly in the face what we are ignoring and what we should pay attention to. So I often also see that people actually, understand what the intuition is telling them, but they prefer to shut it down immediately because they don't want to act on their insights. They don't want to be irritated. They don't want to irritate their own thinking. They don't want to go for anything scary or way out of the box. And it could be sometimes not the time, it might be that it's not yet the time. I mean, if the intuition tells you should leave your job or your partner or something like that, maybe this is a first insight, but it's not the time yet. But paying attention to such voices inside of you is important so that you can get a clearer picture in the interplay between your rational mind and your intuitive mind. So courage is important. Courage to really pay attention and maybe also act upon what you understand from your intuition. And what can you do? What are helpful practices in order to cultivate and grow your intuition? The first one is being open, being receptive to whatever comes. So not expecting any specific pleasant result, but being in a very powerful way, being humble enough to say, okay, I don't have any expectations to what my intuition should tell me, but I just let it talk to me, and I am a listener. I'm ready to receive. So that's really great practice, this openness for whatever comes. And this is the fundament of all, and this is why we also had this meditation at the beginning. So mindfulness and meditation is a basic practice that I can, with all heart, suggest to anyone who doesn't have a practice of meditation yet. It just brings you more into your vertical energy, your being, your soul, your intuition, your emotions. So it's really great if you have a regular practice, and even if it's just 5 minutes per day, you just really get used to paying attention to what's being spoken inside of you. And last but not least, and this is my favorite actually, nature. When we are out in nature, there are on so many levels, there are things happening in us and around us that facilitate our getting into our own intuition. This has to do with biological, physiological reactions, but it also has to do with energy. And it would be a whole different chapter to talk about this evening, so I just leave it there. But I invite you to practice. Going out for a walk in nature can be extremely clearing and inspiring in terms of finding new answers and solutions to problems that you haven't been able to get your head around. Yeah, so I look at the time. We could have another exercise, but this would take too long, so we leave that for another time. And instead, I will just give you a quick overview what else you could do if you are interested with me in the Center for Greater Good Leadership. So one possibility is a leadership retreat in nature, a one-day retreat. It's called Wisdom in the Woods. It's for very small groups, 2 to maximum 4, 6 people maybe. To spend a day out in a beautiful nature sanctuary near Berlin, cultivating your inner wisdom around a certain theme. And the first theme is new beginnings. So that is happening on 29 April in the outskirts of Berlin. Another possibility is a soul mission life vision workshop, which will take place in November, 23 to 25 November, in Wandlitz near Berlin as well. And this is really a great opportunity. And I'm so happy that I am hosting this, because this is the first Alan Seale Soul Mission Life Vision original workshop ever happening in Germany. And I am inviting two of his most experienced facilitators, one from the Netherlands and one from Sweden. They will come to Germany to run the workshop. And it will be an amazing experience for anyone who is still in the process of finding or refining their soul mission and or life vision at this point in their life. So that's an Alan Seale's original that I can really warm-heartedly suggest to anyone. And last but not least, of course, personal coaching sessions. As I mentioned, I always work with intuition. So I offer personal coaching sessions, and that is obviously something that is very flexible to your needs. It can be done online or offline, and at the times that you prefer. So yeah, I just wanted to throw that out so you know that there are possibilities in Berlin or near Berlin or online. And yeah, we are at the end of this workshop. I would also like to share this link with you. Maybe I will just post that quickly here in the chat section as well, because I would love to have your feedback on this session, and also if you would like to have more information on any of the 3 offers that I just mentioned, you could also, you know, ask me there, because unfortunately the websites for the retreats and the workshop are not ready yet. I was hoping it would be ready by now, but unfortunately they're not yet. So I will then send it to you as soon as it's there, and it should be in the next few days, I think. So yeah, I will stop the screen sharing then here. And I am very curious to hear your questions.
So maybe before we open up the Q&A, Julia, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I could listen to your voice like really forever. So you haven't mentioned it, but you're also a speaker. So if you guys need somebody to speak about the topic of intuition, so here she is. I love your voice, and I love the practices you shared with us. I found them really, really insightful and extremely interesting, what was coming up in the short time we did it. So really thank you for coming here, for sharing also how we can keep in touch with you and your amazing work. I will definitely share all the links in the show notes and with any communication going out after tonight. So thank you, Julia. So I will now stop the recording, so then we can open up the Q&A, and I'm pretty sure that you guys also have tons of questions, and we love to explore your access to intuition together. Okay.